Hello and Allah upon my friend all over the planet, from all the creeds, all colors, all nations. My name is Abbas Tamori. Time is 12 o'clock, actually 7 minutes past. Today is 30th, isn't it? 29th of the December. I got on a few days. Within the next few days I will be out of Canada for about a month. But I have time to complete these speeches, so if for whatever reason I was not around, at least the matter is completed. What I will be talking tonight, tomorrow night, and probably the day after, 3-4 videos are very, very crucial to be heard by the people of the West, even of the East. These are new topics, new introduction to the Baha'i faith that hasn't been there. So, let's start from one of these problems that no one has addressed it. In order to speak to at the very beginning, let me tell you that in the Baha'i faith we have 4 individuals that are infallibles. And you know, they're the Bab, forerunner of Baha'u'llah, manifestation of God, founder of the Baha'i religion, the elder of Baha'u'llah. And then is Baha'u'llah himself, his divine majesty, the founder of the Baha'i faith, the very God foretold in all the books of the past. And then after him there are 2 interpreters of his writing. The first one is his son, Abdu'l, and the grandson of Abdu'l, or great-grandson of Baha'u'llah, who's Shawi Effendi. These 4 are infallible. But there are other peoples besides them. I brought this up, but today, just to bring up the topic, I'm going to summarize that again, bring it up again. Bab had some disciples. Officially we call them letters of living. In fact, 18. But previous to this, and Bab officially speaks about it, he talks about representative, Nuvab-i-Arba'i, or Abwab-i-Arba'i. The same usage of the Bab is been applied to them as well. The 4 Babs, the 4 gates, gates to the gates. Baha'u'llah himself is gate to God, gate to Baha'u'llah, but he himself had 4 gates to him, 4 representative. Those that have worked, their works has been essential in his manifestation, in his revelation, in his mission. We call them then what? Nuvab or Abwab, gates or representative, 4 of them. Plus how many? 18 letters of the living. Now, 18 letters of the living, with he himself, becomes 19. And then you have 5 elders, extra elders, that they're coming, they become altogether 24. These are called elders. Elders is a topic, is a title used only in the Baha'i faith. What are the 24 elders? Comprises of 18 letters of the living, plus 5 other elders, of which one of them is me, of whom one of them is me, and, 4 others. They make the 24 elders. In the Baha'i dispensation, there were 18, called 18 letters of the living. In Islam, we have 12 Imams, plus 12 Naib or Bab, the plural form of which is Abwab or Nuvab-i-Arba'i, 4. 4 Babs or 4 Naibs plus 12 Imam. These are just some of the names, so you know. we also have hands of the cause of God. Their number is not clear. There's no given number when we talk about them. When you say Imam, 12. When you say Abwab, 4. When you say 18 letters of the, when you say letters of the living, 18. When you say elders, they're 24. But the name hands of the cause of God, officials, also used only in the Baha'i faith. But their numbers is not officially known. At the time of Shaykh Effendi, there were 27, but there are many of others that were called hands of the cause of God, including Martha Ruth, which she was not alive at the time, after the passing of Shaykh Effendi. So, this is the introduction. Now, what is the problem? In the Islamic sect of Shi'ites, presently right now in Iran and other places, there are 12 Imams. And you know, called Imam Ali, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, then his son Imam Sajjad, Imam Baqir, Imam Sadiq, Imam Kazim, Imam Reza, Imam Taghi, Imam Naqi, Imam Hassan Askari, and the 12th one, they say he is concealed, he's hidden, occult. He's gone. He's among us, but we don't know who it is. That's what the belief is. So, this Imam, which Baha'i faith says did not exist, clearly. After the 11th Imam died, I brought this topic before. In the Islam's tradition, there are two traditions. One says there was a one child that died, and the other one says there wasn't any. Baha'i faith does not accept that there was any. But all of a sudden, 4 people showed up. 4 people showed up. And they said that we know him. We have seen him, and he's alive. And you give your donations, benevolences to us. The whole idea was political, and it was to save the Muslims, Iranian, I should say, hopes that this Imam is here and he's going to bring justice, because they were occupied by the Arabs and they wanted to know when is this Imam coming to make the Shiites to be the only religion and get rid of Arabs. That was the idea. Politically motivated. These 4 people were around, like Hussein ibn Ru, Osman Amri, Muhammad al-Samiri, and I don't know, 4 of them. Now, strange enough, in the first 2 years of the revelation of the Bab actually accepts their existence. Yes. He even makes interpretations of this fabricated Imam. Bab refers to the writing of this fabricated Imam. But then I explained to you, Bab saw people believe in something like this. He had to use their own ideology. From there, gradually moves them around. So if he said there were 4 naib for this Imam, is not very strange. Let's say he had to, put up with the situation. He had to compromise with his patients, spiritual patients, whom had these viruses installed on their heads for many, many centuries, to gradually get rid of them. Such as these ideas are many that Bab outwardly accepts it. Later on, he revokes it, cancels it, abrogates it. He even said, I am nobody but a representative of your Imam, that, fabricated Imam. Precisely speaking, I brought it in the few books that he talks about it. I've written it here. There you go. I have to use my memory. I don't have the papers in front of me. But in one of his writing, Tafsir al-Ha, the interpretation of the letter H, Bab actually bring the name of the fourth one of them, Muhammad al-Samiri. Okay, a fourth one. He also bring the name of another one called Osman, in the same tablet. Twice he brings his names up. I haven't seen the names of the other ones that he brought, except in one of his earliest tablet called Interpretations of the chapter of Kauthar. Kauthar, or Kauthar, some people say it means abundance, is a wrong translation, is a chapter that the divine of the Shah at that time came down to Bab, and is a very mysterious one, basically line chapter. The whole chapter is one line. And he wanted to know what Bab knows about it, and Bab wrote a very thick book, few hundred pages, on this little chapter. In there, Bab brings all the name of this force, all of them, and says people have to obey them, it says. And from this fabricated Imam, he brings a lot of writings. But for us to know that the first 2 years, Bab speaks of these things. Later on, though, he did not bring the names up. Simply meant to us as a Baha'i that, okay, this is the gradual progressions, as he says exactly in the Bayan, how mankind has to progress slowly towards the truth. Now, when the book of Bayan in Azerbaijan in north, this is right now past 4th, 5th year, just about a year before he dies, in the 6th year. He's revealing the book of Bayan. In the Bayan, everybody knows, Bab declares clearly, I am the promised one, I am the messenger of God, no more words of the past, because he had enough followers. He pulled the truth right out to the public. No more what is known, taqiyya was involved. Taqiyya, which means concealing, is one of the founding principles of the Shi'ites mostly, that when you're in trouble, you may conceal your belief in order to save your life. Or if the person is ignorant and you can't tell the truth to him, you could conceal it. And all the Imam have done taqiyya all the time. Nothing new. Bab used the same principles and concealed his claims in the beginning. Gradually brought it up. So, but we know at the time when he reveals the Bayan, there is no more concealing involved. What he says is what it means. All the Baha'is, they know. In there, he again refers to this 4. That creates a problem. Because this 4 is repudiated completely, beyond a shadow of doubt, in the Baha'i faith by Baha'u'llah, by Abdu'l. I brought the book. Read the book called Kitab Hazrat Bab. The book is Holiness, the book of His Holiness Bab, page from 971 to 973. The scholar, the worthy scholar of the Baha'i faith, Dr. Allama Husseini, he has brought this writing of Baha'u'llah, where Baha'u'llah says completely these people were fabricating the truth and they were not real. There is no such things. But yet Bab refers to four. What do we do? It needs a proper examination to understand what this means, because there's a clear difference between the word of Baha'u'llah and the Bab. At this time, the time of the revelation of the Bayan, there is no doubt all the claims and all the rules and everything that's in the Bayan, it is what it is. Everyone knows that. So, let's get a closer examinations. Bab refers to the word of these four people previously, anyways, that the last one of them, he said that the so-called fabricated Imam told me that I should not write any will and testament, that somebody else would have to be succeeding me. He said, I am gone, I'm not coming back. I will be gone into the grand occultations, or I like to call it occultations, and I'm not going to be around. They call it Ghaybat al-Sughra, lesser occultations, or grand occultations. So, I will not come back, he says, till God permits me. That's why it was only four, really. Four specific ones. Papa's used that to say the word of this man. But he refers to two more. He uses the word abwab, which means gates, in many, many different meanings, because Bab means a door. Baha'u'llah means a gate, door to God. Bab also means a chapter in a book. There's also a chapter of the book is called the Bab. But when you put a name of a person on it, it means a representative. As such, Bab has referred to distinct individual as Bab. This automatically tells us the word of the last one that he said, the fabricated Imam told me that there is no more Bab. Bab actually does not seem to pay any attention to it. Although he mentions it, quotes it, but he actually doesn't believe in it, because he does mention two people to be the Bab. And it is in Surah Al-Anwar, the chapter called Anwar, in the Tafsir Surah Ahsan al-Qasas, the interpretation of the chapter of Joseph. He says, Ya Ahlul Arz, inni qad nazzaltu alaykum al-abwab fi ghaybati wa la yattaba'unahum min al-mu'minin illa ghalila wa qad arsalta alaykum fil azmanati al-maziyyati ahmadan وفي العظمنة الغريبة كاظما فلن يتبعوهما إلا المخلصون. O people of the earth, verily I revealed unto you the Bab's representatives in my occultations. He was not followed except by the believers, very few. And verily I did send to you in the past time Ahmadan. Ahmad means Sheikh Ahmad Ahsai. فَفِي الْأَزْمَنَةِ الْغَرِيبَةِ in the recent years, Kazim, which is Sayyid Kazim Rashdi. So, the word Abwab, representative, he uses these two people, Ahmad and Kazem has to be two of them. So this might become an answer to where those fours are. An idea in Islam existed, and exists even still today, which Baha'i faith and Babi faith both accepted. It's called the return of the Imams. Just like Christianity, return of Jesus. Islam also believed the returns of the Imam. Return means those who were dead. Muhammad, Fatima, and 11 Imam, 14 altogether, including the fabricated Imam, becomes 14. They will all be returning to help the promised one, he says. So in the first chapter, on the first unit of the chapter 1, on the second chapter actually, Bab goes on every individual chapter just to mention that he clearly mentioned Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, did return. We all know he was one of the letter of the living called Mullah Hussein Bashroiyi. Then he said Imam Ali returned. That came in the form of the letter of the living Mullah Ali Bastami. Then he says that Fatima returned. Well, that is the daughter of Muhammad. That would be Tahira Qurratul Ain. And so on. All the 11 Imam, he actually mentioned their names. But when it comes to this Abwab, he actually does not mention name. He just simply says the first Bab returned. The second Bab, the third Bab, and the fourth Bab. First representative returned, second representative, but he does not give names. This means those four people that Muslims believed in, and even Bab refers to them, actually Bab does not accept them to be true. Otherwise, he would have brought their names. He would have said, okay, Hussein ibn Ruh, one of them has returned, but he does not bring the name Hussein ibn Ruh. This means he is not accepting those four. But yet he's mentioning that there has been four. Then who are the four? He in that book mentions Sheikh Ahmad and Sayyid Kazim al-Rashdi as two. Who are the other two? And we know this cannot be those four because Baha'i faith disagree with them. Bab apparently agrees with Baha'u'llah that those four are not the true real one. Otherwise he would have brought their names, just like he brought the name of all the Imams in their return. But he does not bring their name. That means, although I believe in the four number, but not are those people, he says. Two of them, he says, Ahmad and Sheikh Kazim. Another place in the Kitab of Bayan, which there is no hiding or concealing the truth, he says that in the unit 7, in the chapter 7 of the unit 8, I've translated in Persian. چنانچه امروز اگر مؤمنی عامل هست به قول اهل بیت و ابواب اربعه است در غیبت صغرا که بعد از آن چه از ایشان رسیده کسی نتوانست تغییری و تبدیلی دهد به حق. I translated it. Inasmuch as today if there is an acting believer, it is due to the words of the immaculate essences, which means the 12 Imam, and the four representative in the lesser occultations, after which whatever was received from them, no one could truly make any change thereof. A true change in what has been received by these people truly has not been investigated. Nobody could make any change in it. Real changes as what it means and what they are. He says that. So, we're going to do that today. I looked into the writings to see, in terms of a person who have made a considerable change in the ideology and the belief of the people, correcting them, making them one step closer to the truth of the Baha'i faith. Who has been these people? Have affected a large number of people, brought them closer to the truth. One of them was in around 8th century, which means about 280 years passed from Islam. About 30 years, maybe just past the 12th Imam died. From a Sunni, not Shiite family, as the book says, a recent Muslim, a son came. He had a fervent desires in knowing the truth. And his name is Hussein ibn Mansur Hallaj. It is known among all the Persian poets, literature, philosophers as known as Hallaj. So, they say that he said he also is the representative of Imam. He actually said that. That was his claim. And then said many, many things that God has manifested into me, he said. I am God, he said. There is nobody beneath my robe but God, he said. لَيْسَ فِي جُبَّتِي إِلَّا اللَّهِ. There's nobody under my robe but God. Matter went on and on and on. Finally, they caught up with him. They told him, repent. He said, no. I think Caliph called Muqtadar, Mr. Muqtadar, those days of the Abbasids, complained to him. He was sentenced by the other divines of the time. He was caught, put into the court, and he was executed. They cut him into the pieces. Many things have been said about him. For example, they said when they cut his right hand, he says, man is the one who can cut my true hand, who is robbing the throne from the head of the god and put it on his own. Those were the stuff he was saying. Huge. And he died. The entire Persian literature and culture, there is not a single poet. I'm talking literally thousands and thousands of books. There isn't a single one of them that had not spoken of him. The famous ones, such as Rumi, such as Attar, such as Sanoi, everybody has spoken. He's the greatest lover of God. They explained that he came to a complete annihilations of the selfhood, and then God was manifesting in him. There was no more Hallaj. All it was God was saying, I am God. There was not him. But people would not know this. When Muhammad, the prophet of God, says, I'm just a prophet of God, how can somebody come and say, I am the God? There has been few people saying these things, but he was executed for it. So the entire Persian literature was just boosted and enhanced. Basically what we know as Sufis began really to be from him. There were Sufis before, but they were more like monks, and they were living, in different ways, imitating the Christians and Hindus. But he came with a beautiful dress, but he said, this is it, I am God. But mainly that I am, he said, the representative of Imam. That was his official charge, that you can't say that you are. And they caught him and killed him. There's a tablet and the book called Nar and Nur, the fire and light. Baha'u'llah is a book and a tablet. I mentioned this before, I tell you that right now too. Somebody asked him, since Baha'u'llah's name was Hussein, they asked him, are you the same Hussein as it was in Islam, that they said you'll return? Baha'u'llah says, yes, I am that Hussein. And he describes, whatever happened to that Hussein, it actually happened to me. I am the one whose head was cut off. I am the one who suffered. And then in one point he says in Persian, و گاهی در هوایم بیاویختند. And sometimes, he says, they hanged me in the air. So we know the first Hussein would be reference to that. Which other Hussein was hanged in the air? Hussein Hallaj. So Baha'u'llah is alluding that I am his return. This gives a huge door for an investigator to find out if he could be one of the elders ultimately, but one of the four Babs he was. Because the main claim of Baha'u'llah, just like him, he says, I am God. And who made the road easy for understanding this? Hallaj in Iran. It's acceptable. It's not the most difficult things in Iran. If somebody says, I am God, they say, well, we understand this, because there's a history of it in the past. So, he is one of them. Then there's a second one. Right around 13th centuries, a great, again, individual appeared in Iran. In the West, you know him as Rumi. It would not be a lie if I say that Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l, especially these two, must have used the name of Rumi and a quotation to his writing at least 100 times. More than 100 times. The writing, which is the poetry of Rumi, has been quoted by Baha'u'llah. It was at times a hard time. In Iran, the attack was made by the Mongol horde. The entire Iran, the kingdom, everything was gone. Prior to this, his father, which was somewhere from Balkh, which is part of Tajikistan and Afghanistan today, but those days was part of Iran, very east. He traveled from there all the way past Iran and went all the way to Turkey, somewhere in Konya, about 5-6 hours south of Ankara. I've been there. He had stopped there. I brought this story before. The truth of the matter, and there, Rumi, of course, met these strange individuals, which his name is Shams Tabrizi. Tabriz means a city. The Shams of Tabriz means the sun from Tabriz, an allusion to the Bab himself, because he was executed in Tabriz and he was the sun. He met this individual called Shams Tabrizi, who entirely changed his life, illuminated him, as the book says. But no one knows what was the relationship in this. I was reading when I was a kid, Terence Stamp, the English actor, he was trying with extracting the love between two guys, homosexuality out of this. See how people go wrong? People cannot explain why would Rumi be so much in love with Shams. He was so much in love with Shams that he has written a book this thick, couple thousand pages, all of them poetry, all of the poems ends, at least 90% of them, ends to Shams Tabrizi. All of it. It's all admiration of Shams. What was this relationship? People have no explanation. I know the truth. What I tell is not written in a book. The father of the Rumi had a dream, take the son away before Mongol horde attacks. because they came first, and they came to his province. It was closest to Mongolia those days. Had a vision, take the child away. He takes the child away, he comes all the way to Iran, Khorasan, then pass, and the vision keep coming, go towards the west. Finally it came to Konya, as I said. There the dream was cut off. Rumi didn't know why his father bringing him from Iran all the way to Turkey. Although he was grown up in Turkey, and people were speaking Turkish, his books were all in Persian. This man was homesick to his hometown. All the book of Rumi is written in Persian. Why, if you are in a Turkish country? But he wrote all of it in Persian. There are a few lines here and they're Turkish too, words maybe. He didn't know why. When he saw the Shams, they say he was in a market and I heard Shams was talking to some people, and the discussion was that Muhammad, the prophet of God, is the apostle of God. And Shams says to the same person, what about Bayazid? Bayazid is another great mystic. And the man says, what about him? Shams says, well, Bayazid said, I am God. This is the second one who said he is God. Don't you believe in it? The guy perplexed, because he says, well, Bayazid cannot be bigger than Muhammad. Muhammad is the prophet of God. But Bayazid said, I'm God. Was he telling the lie? Confused. Rumi just looked back and said, who is this? Because the books were not around. If somebody says something like that, it's huge. How come I don't know him? He goes, sir, who are you? And this and that. He said, my name is Shams. I'm Shams Tabrizi from Tabriz. I haven't heard of you, no. Have you written any books? No. He said, Dervish, would you please today come to my house as a guest? Can I invite you? He said, okay. He goes there and they start to talk. Shams, a Mawlavi, which we call him Mawlavi or same as Rumi, was totally enchanted, enamored with this guy. He didn't go to school. He was a teacher in the school. He was so thirsty and he didn't know so much what Shams says that he cut off the school. So I'm not going to school anymore. I need to learn, he said to his students. Wait. There are a lot of strange stories written about Shams. I'm not going to bring it up right now. But he was thinking, Rumi, that Shams is the promised one. Because about 500 years was passed from Islam, and according to Islamic tradition, was the day of resurrection and appearance of the promised one may take only half a day, which is 500 years. And that would coincide with the Mongol horde attacking Iran. It was a fulfillment. Mongol attacked Iran, and he said, this is the time. We are in trouble. We need the promised one. And that's why Rumi asked him, are you the promised one? Shams tell him, no, I'm not. Not the one you're waiting for. I have just come for you, only. You have to write a book. And Rumi, who was a traditionalist, like Ayatollah Khomeini, for example, completely changed and became a Sufi. He wrote a book that we call Masnavi. It must be the greatest book ever in entire Islamic culture written in the matter of the content. The content of what he says is so immensely huge. No one has understood it yet. Baha'is, or hopefully in the future, they will dissect it and bring it up, because Baha'u'llah has paid so much attention to this book. And in that book, in his poetry, clearly he talks about a huge spiritual being called Effendi, he calls him. Effendi in Turkish language means the Lord. There he talks, I brought this before. Barkhiz Keshurit Kharabat Effendi. That's how he talks. He talks about this Effendi that has writing, whereas Shams has no writing. He talks about him coming, advising people that I know the truth of him now, so do not disobey him. And at the end, He says, Shams, you are like a Moses. From my heart, which is like the Sinai, you have gone to visitation of the Effendi. Clearly that is Baha'u'llah, because he was called the Great Effendi. Abdu'l was called Effendi. Who else? Why in Turkey? Because that's where the truth had come. This is the real reason behind the love of Rumi towards the Shams, because he was thinking as a promised one. His book extended Islam another 500 years. It is that big this book is. It's a true reconstruction of Quran. Just as I've spoken, trying to reconstruct Baha'i faith for you in the English language. So this becomes the second of those representatives. Clearly, all the evidences are there that these two enhance the spiritual understanding of the Shi'ites to a great degree that they did not have before. Therefore, they're directly in the pathway of the prophets of God, both of them, Hallaj and Rumi. The third one is, of course, as Bab mentioned, Sheikh Ahmad Ahsa'i. He was absolutely one of the hugest, biggest of the Muslim scholars who came before appearance of the Bab and essentially was saying that the promised one is not an occultation, is not concealed, is not who has to be born. And he created a new class of Muslims, a new sect, if you like to call it, called Shaykhi, the followers of the Sheikh. Sheikh means the honorable one, the great one. And so people start to understand, Imam is not hiding, he's there. His followers, many of them, they became great followers of the Bab. So this is the third one. Who is the fourth one? You would be astounded if I tell you who the fourth one is. And I'm going to bring a reason for it, just like I brought reason. Sheikh Ahmad I didn't talk about because Bab clearly said Baha'u'llah calls him the representative. Those two were not in, but there is all kind of alluding words to this too. But there is a third one. The fourth one now. Who was the fourth one? There must have been four to be returning in the truth of the letters of the living. See, Bab has 18 disciples. 14 of them are the 12 Imam and Muhammad and Fatima. That makes it 14, including himself. By the way, although he says Muhammad return, Ali return, Fatima return, Hassan return, Hussein return, when it comes to the 12th one, he does not say he was existing. He doesn't say. He says, I am the one. But he then doesn't say, I am the return of him, as if he was existing before. You know, he right there repudiates and agrees with the Baha'u'llah that there was no 12th Imam bodily around. All it was spiritually around. His spiritual truth was around. This is why on the 15th chapter of this unit, he says, the promised one appeared, which is me, he says, himself. And after that, he mentions these four Babs, but does not bring the names. Because it doesn't bring the names, that means those four that Muslims believe, and Bab allude to their names also in the first 2 years of his ministry, are not the one in the mind of Bab. But there are four though, not them. So here, Bab agrees with Baha'u'llah that those four were not real. But there is no mentioning of really a four in the Baha'i writing. Only Bab talks about this four. Four with no name. We have to go to find out who are these. Why would I allow myself as an elder of God, as an interpreter of the writing, to say this? It's because Abdu'l did that. I'm an elder, I can interpret the writing, but into the context of the interpretations of Shoghi Effendi of Abdu'l Baha. I cannot say anything to abrogate the writing of Abdu'l Baha and Shoghi Effendi. I cannot say that. I have to speak within their context. What they say is infallible, it can never be abrogated. I as an elder, other elders, they can interpret. And there are no elders, but there are guardians who would come in future. This is a general term. They would all have to interpret within the context of the previous interpretations. They can't abrogate it or change it. Abdu'l Baha changed one of these 18 letters of the living, because they were supposed to be the return of Imam. 3 of them were not good. One of them was seriously bad. He actually participated with Azal in harming Baha'u'llah and the Baha'i faith to the great extent. If somebody of a spiritual mind reads the epistle to Son of the Wolf, at the end of it, Baha'u'llah tells him, I beg you. His name was Hadi Ghazvini. He says, I beg you. Can you believe that? Baha'u'llah, the master of him, is begging him. He says, I beg you, stop this nonsense. Do not put people into trouble. Hadi, do not do it. Please, he says. But he nevertheless did it. Finally, Baha'u'llah cast him right off. He tells him, O-H, which is his first name, Hadi, H starts with H. He says the H of your first name is actual hell. You are celebrating and happy that you are harming me. And the Bab is crying from your act. Thou hast taken Baal, says Baal, the ancient god of Babylonia, Baal as thy Lord. So Baha'u'llah literally cast him off. And Abdu'l Baha says, the one who built the first Baha'i temple in Russia, in the city of Ashgabat, who was the cousin of the Bab, by the way, always had this smile on his face. After he dies, Abdu'l Baha says he is one of the elders. But there were 2 other ones that were not good. I'm going to bring these 2. Based on what Abdu'l Baha did, then I'm looking at the blank spaces. There are 4 blank. We don't know what the names were. Now, today, officially, I told you that. Of the 4, I brought 3 names. One of which already Bab has mentioned, Ahmad Ahsai. And 2 of them was Hallaj and Rumi. There is a 3rd one, the 4th one. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. May God be with you. Allahu Akbar.